Now let's go ahead and hit on the cameras. So this thing, like I mentioned, had that triple camera setup on the back, that wide angle lens, telephoto lens, and ultra wide sensor. And I think this camera was actually pretty good. I think one thing that I loved about this screen was the fact that it was pretty much just a massive viewfinder for your specific camera. So you could go ahead and, use this phone however you wanted to, but when it came down to using that camera, it was almost like you were seeing through the phone, which is so crazy. It's kind of hard to explain. Maybe it's kind of like the same thing when you use an iPad, but the screen on this thing is so massive, so I really liked it. Now you can do 4K at 60, which is great, and I really do think the camera overall is a solid, camera for sure. Is it perfect? Not really, but I think it got the job done, and I think it's an extremely good sensor still. There really isn't too much to complain about that I can see in my head. Now, like I mentioned, it's not perfect. There's no 8K, I guess. That's kind of becoming the thing Samsung's known for. But I definitely do think the camera on this thing is still a really solid camera. If you're planning on picking it up, I think you're going to have a pretty good time with it. Now you did have that dual camera setup on the front, a 10 megapixel wide angle lens, then an 8 megapixel wide angle lens. Unfortunately, I don't know why they didn't have like an ultra wide or something, but I think it's still okay for the most part. Like this camera is still fairly good. Now on the front there was another 10 megapixel sensor, which basically allowed you to, I'm not really even too sure. I mean, it was just like when the screen was folded. It really didn't bring you any, I guess, crazier capability than the unfolded one did, than the folded one did, but I still think that's still a really good thing about this, phone for sure. It had like so many cameras on it. And luckily for us, we could still do 4K at 60 on the front camera as well. So I think that's another W in my opinion. Again, it probably wasn't the best camera setup, but it's still pretty good so far. So in terms of the camera, thumbs up for me for sure. Now hitting